realize part of the problem was I've got the memo on here. We don't have the memo on there, do we? Do you have the agenda and stuff on that? Do I start the meeting or?
Yes, start please. Hey, Dr.
Hey, okay.
So there are two people. I'm gonna meet them here.
What do
I mean, yeah, you go. I think you can just join because they already started the meeting. It's gonna work the same. So I'm gonna share just the map tab. Right?
We need the, I want the memo up there to the schedule. Is that on there or not?
Yeah, it's one of these tabs. I'm gonna just. So they just can see the map and the memo is here. I'm gonna do it. Yeah, that's okay. Turn on. If you want to test, if people can hear you. Hi.
Hello, can people hear?
Yes, this is Andy Mullins. I can hear.
Hey, Andy.
I take this out because we don't need. Okay. We don't need to.
That's fine. Yeah.
I put this because of the mouse, right?
Yeah.
But
You can.
Put this. I'm gonna put it on silence.
Yeah. See if the agenda's in there. I mean, So what can they see now? They can see this, everything?
No, they can see just, there's the map.
Okay.
Like what you're seeing here.
I would like them to see the agenda as well too. How do I do that?
Then I need to share more.
Sorry.
You share. I'm gonna share all the application. Here's somebody else.
Hello?
And share, yes. And then just simply close it. There's nothing.
Close one.
And the other tabs, just to nominate. Oh, okay. This one, yeah, this one, and the other one. This one. If you want to see what they are seeing this without this.
Okay.
You have the view up on your.
Yeah, whatever.
Oh, I was gonna. I was gonna pull it up on my phone so I can see. So what's the meeting? Do I need to register to get a meeting ID?
I think so. I think you click it. There's one more person.
What?
I'm gonna Bluetooth.
You do it.
Yes.
That's weird. We did. Who's not muted after this?
You can mute everybody. I mean, it's not a good idea, but.
No. Oh, it said, am I muted?
Yeah, because I need to mute
Yeah,
you.
that's fine.
You may need to. I need to do this on my phone.
But then it's gonna be.
Whoops.
You can mute.
Well, I wasn't gonna use. I cannot connect to audio, see.
You mean you should not, or you can?
I can do it where I don't join audio, but I need a meeting ID.
It's been rough.
Confirmation email.
Is our camera on or not? Doesn't look like it. We don't.
No, there's no, here, no videos. Not there. Go.
Yeah, I'm about to turn that off because keep muted.
All right, we're not muted here though.
Right. Oh, yeah.
I've got 9:59. I think we'll just kind of wait for a couple more minutes and see if anybody else joins us. Ed said he probably would not be online. He might not.
All right.
Do you want to sing? Remember that last time you put a message. Hi. In that time you put some message. What did I put? Okay.
Can you monitor the messages, Peter?
Yes, I do. Wow,
It's 10:01. I think we'll just go on for a little bit more, wait a little bit further. There's Heather joining. Heather joining again.
Yeah, that's my phone. I'm gonna get off the other one because in case I need.
So the chat thing, I just click this, or
You want to close? Yeah, yes.
is it that, or?
That's what it looks like.
Oh, cool, yeah.
I would just put
Okay, I'm getting off.
Alex. It's good to think. So you go through this.
Oh, you're welcome.
Get on this. Involved.
Good is saying that you don't have enough.
I don't have enough.
5% more. You agree?
What?
You have the charger.
Oh.
Hey guys, this is Gary. How you doing this morning?
Good morning.
Just wanted to let you know I got some text saying people are still trying to get on.
Okay. All righty. Y'all will just help me keep an eye and see if people are trying to join and stuff. Okay. I'll need to admit them and stuff, so you can admit them as well too, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I think let's go ahead and start, and we can get this thing moving. I'm glad everybody could join us. Looks like we've got we certainly got a much better group today than we had the other day. So we've got 18 folks in the room up here at Texas A&M at the Hazard Center. We've got Doug Wannerberger. Doug is kind of like the GIS web guru person, so that's helping us pull this stuff together. He's shaking his head. He just crossed his fingers as well that everything works. We've got David Bierling, who's BI on this project, and he's the Associate Director for Transportation Work here at Hazard, as well as with TTI. Alexander Abuabara, who is our graduate student on this project, who's like amazing at pulling together different data. So a lot of the data that we're playing with today, he's been instrumental in pulling together as well too. I think everybody can see my screen here, so we've got kind of the list of folks. If we can kind of go through this and everybody just introduce themselves real quickly, would be great. I don't know who this number is. I think that's actually someone just dialing in so they can talk as well. John, you want to start things off? Oops. I think he's muted himself. I unmuted.
He's working, he's using his phone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's try that again.
There we go. Yep, we hear you.
Yeah, it's RJ, John, and Lucy from the COG.
Great. Thanks for joining us today. Dave?
Good morning, Dave Yeager, Emergency Management Officer, Naval Air Station, Kingsville.
He's the phone number.
Good to have you. Andy?
Andy Mullins, Texas A&M Transportation Institute.
Andy's the overall leader of this effort. Mike?
Muted.
That's,
Is he?
I don't think that's,
I think even if you do, he needs to do there.
yeah, Mike, I think you got to unmute yourself. Well, how about Sheldon?
Yes, sir. Sheldon Wigington, Refugio County Emergency Management Coordinator.
Welcome. Kelly? Again.
Is it?
Okay.
Yeah.
Kelly? All right, Rick?
Try it again. Rick McMaster, Ramsey County Emergency Management.
Great, thank you. Rick?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry, forgive me. Okay. Daryl?
This is Daryl Bohart, Texas A&M Transportation Institute in our Houston office.
Daryl is kind of the lead on our transportation component of the project. I think this is just a number for somebody that's perhaps already done. We can't really tell. Will?
Yeah, Will Swanson, TxDOT here in Victoria County.
Welcome. Oh, Ed's joining. Oh, wow. Great. Okay. Heather?
Hi, this is Heather Shaw, FEMA Region 6 Acting Hurricane Program Manager.
Welcome. Let's see. What do you, oh, sorry. Sorry, I'm trying to admit people as well too as we're going through this. Alex?
Alex Garcia, the Executive Director, the Coastal Bend Region for the American Red Cross.
Welcome. Billy?
I'm here.
All right.
Oh,
Ed,
sorry.
are you?
City of Corpus Christi, I'm sorry.
Mute one.
Okay, Billy, I muted one of you. Try it again. Got any echo there?
Billy Delgado, City of Corpus Christi. There we go.
Thank you. Looks like Ed is in, but maybe not connected with the microphone. Ed, are you on? Shanna, maybe?
I'm on the phone. Yes, Shanna from San Patricio County.
Great, thank you. We just have these phone numbers that show up, and so I'm not quite sure who they are. So, all right. Well, Ed, I think I see your phone there. So, you want to say hello?
Yeah, I'm here. I finally made it. I had to get on my personal PC in order to get Zoom work.
Well, thanks for joining. All right. I think we did everybody. Did we hit everybody there? I think there are a few people that we kind of passed over.
Yeah, this is Gary Barney with TDM out of Corpus Christi. I don't know if Ernie's on yet or not.
Well, thanks for joining.
He was in the class, and he was going to have a couple people in the class with him too. So.
Oh, right, yeah. All right. Okay, well, let's, I'm kind of walk through the agenda real quickly here. We're just gonna, the real purpose of this webinar here is to kind of introduce I guess this is a beta version, a pre-beta version of the Atlas, in which we're gonna kind of talk about the different data that we pulled together for the vulnerability analysis, as well as just the general data that may be useful for y'all's planning activities, as well as the project activities. And then we'll have a little discussion as well too, other data that y'all might like to see on there, as well as data that we're still trying to get to actually incorporate into the Atlas and help us with the vulnerability analysis as well too. I will admit to begin with that this web link is just rather obscure right now. We will incorporate that into, I'm going to go, this is the Hazard Reduction Recovery Center's website, and on the right-hand side is a link to a variety of different planning atlases that we've developed. Right now, we have a scaled-down version of the Atlas. We will replace this eventually, or maybe even add another link, perhaps, to until we get the full thing up and running. But right now, if you go there and click on the Atlas, basically what will come up will be a scaled-down version of what we have with the evacuation zones, 2008, 2013, as well as some other data and the like stuff. So that may be a little bit more convenient way of getting to the Atlas, like go to the Hazard Center, HHRC Hazard Center, and we'll link through there. I would ask if y'all are not on, and if you would mute yourselves, because I really don't want to mute everybody. I want people to be able to jump on when they want to. But if you could mute yours so we don't get the background noise and the like from your area. When you want to, just speak up. Somebody's on there.
Okay, well, that's fine.
Billy, maybe you could mute yourself there, please. So. Maybe I'll.
Just do other one.
There we go. All right. In the again in the agenda is the link to the website. So let me kind of just walk through the website to begin with, so you can kind of get a sense of what's going on. You're welcome to kind of walk through this with me. However, if you've got, unless you've got multiple screens, it's going to be a little bit difficult for you to kind of see the different things that I'll want to show as you're looking through there as well too and stuff. So maybe I should make this larger, or what do you think?
Yeah, I want this one being resized.
Oh, that's cool. All right. So this is the kind of the interface into the website. This is a GIS platform that's running on the web. So you'll be able to kind of play with different data sets, bring those data sets up, and bring up those data layers. You can move them around, overlap them. We can play with the transparency and the like to kind of help y'all in terms of, or to help you in terms of your planning activities. To what's in terms of your evacuation planning kinds of things, as well as we will be improving this and adding other things to it as we complete our vulnerability analysis for the entire area. It's a basic website that, you know, depending upon how your mouse is set up and everything, as you toggle with the mouse, in mine it kind of zooms in and out. Some may zoom up and down in terms of different areas of the coast, but you can always grab and move different parts of the map around as well too. There are a set of bookmarks here that actually bookmark into different parts of the coastal bend area, in part because there are slightly different evacuations zones in those areas, and so we've got ability to kind of zoom into those areas as well too. So it gives you kind of just basic movement. The key kind of elements over here there's a legend that shows actually what's active at this particular point in time, and all we've got now active are the coastal boundaries, and there's a coastal water interface that kind of makes the nice parts of the bay and the intercoastal look more realistic. Basically, it's covering over different areas in the base map as well too. And then the key part here are the layers. So these are the different layers that we can pull up and actually kind of get a general idea of both physical hazards, of the evacuation zones, of various forms of the evacuation zones, all the way back to the 2008 zones, as well as lots of data related to critical facilities, population characteristics, vulnerabilities of populations, as well as some elements of infrastructure also. So basic kinds of format in terms of that. Within each of these layers, within each of the layers, there are a variety of data that are kind of stored within each of these tabs, if you will, and you'll need to go into those tabs, turn them on, and then turn on the main tab to actually pull up the data to actually look at the information in it as well too. Some of the data as well becomes more refined as you move into a county location. So if you start zooming in onto a city, for example, a lot of the data will actually begin to, you can see it much more clearly. So there's an awful lot of data in some of these different layers, and they'll only become clearer as you zoom in. For a lot of the analysis, or excuse me, for a lot of these data, they are presented for the entire region, but there also are calculations behind those data. So we've modified, or we were actually giving you additional kinds of data, and those are generally at the county level. That is, we have looked at population, for example, and we've got then maybe have percent of the population as a particular characteristic. That's always the percent of the population in the county that has that characteristics, or the proportion of in the county. So a lot of the data presentation is county specific, not for the entire region. Again, the reason for that is we want y'all to be able to kind of utilize these data for your analysis in the county itself as well too, stuff. Let's see, what else should I cover in terms of this, just the basic stuff? Anything, Doug?
Why don't you open one of those, he mentioned that some of these layers have multiple parts. So for example, the evacuation zones are mapped for the whole area, and then individually for Nueces and Calhoun County, so I can turn those on for the whole group at this level, or I can turn them off and on here. You probably don't want to have more than one of those turned on, because they'll overlap, and then if you pick on them later on when you're looking at data, you'll get two layers for the same area, or two pop-ups for the same space. But we'll go into that a little bit later.
Can you give us a little information on the critical facilities, what level of detail that's providing?
Yeah, we'll walk through all of these, so you'll get an idea of each and every one of these, okay?
Okay,
so,
great, thanks.
All right. Yeah, don't hesitate to ask questions, because I may skip over things as well as we are going through this stuff. So let me kind of first begin with just some of the physical hazard data. So we've got the surge data that we utilize to actually help develop the evacuation zones, as well as some wind related data. So I'm going to go to the surge data here. So I've opened up that tab. We've basically got two sets of data in here. We've got what we're calling the precise data. That's the data that we got from the Corps. This is data that, again, is created by NOAA, and then the Corps takes these data, adds into their assessment the digital terrain models for those areas, as well as the information regarding hydrology, et cetera, in the area and stuff. And so we had a very precise version of those data, you all may remember, as we kind of worked through this, as well as a smooth version of these data. I'm going to go ahead and turn on the kind of precise one to begin with. If you'll notice, I've turned that on, and you can see how we've got, this is the first level, and then these are the second level. You see how it's indented slightly, and then we've got pieces of within there as well too. So this is the precise data for each one of the for the entire area. And as we zoom in, you can see again that this reflects the different MOMs for different categories of storms in each of those areas. Here we can play with those a little bit in terms of some of the, we can view the attribute table. These are the data that actually are up in the map at any particular point in time. Give it a second to come up.
Yeah, that was
sorry?
pretty big data set. So
oh, so
where it comes, that's the...
Yeah.
county data.
So as we go through this, and as y'all are working with these data, you can actually work with the attribute tables itself. So this is the actual data that is being displayed on the screen. The resolution hasn't fully come in yet right here because these are very large data sets that we're bringing in here. So it'll clear up and just, there we go. So you can get much more precise kind of view of the way the data look on those the areas that we might be interested in. So this again is Cat 0 is tropical storm all the way through Cat 5. So it just kind of shows the different areas of likely inundation for the very precise data. And if you remember, there's kind of kind of ragged edges. There also are kind of pieces of data that are out beyond the kind of the general areas that are likely to be inundated. So because of that, we also created the kind of the smooth version of the data. So I'm going to turn the precise off, and now I'll turn our smooth versions on. So if you remember, what we did here is we took these data and we added a boundary, and then we pulled in kind of orphaned areas that are beyond those to kind of smooth them out to help us kind of come up with to help us in terms of developing the evacuation zones. With this one, you can turn on each individual component as well too, so you can actually see then what likely inundations are for different categories of storms as well, and you can kind of zoom in to get very high resolution as well too. I'm going to zoom back out. So again, these are the data that we employed to actually come up with and to develop our evacuation zones also. Do these? Yeah. So if you are, for example, looking at an area, so I'm going to zoom in to the Flower Mound area, and we've got this nice layer here, so you can actually see where likely inundation will be. If you want to see what's behind that area, though, there are a variety of ways of doing that. Let me go back and show you what I did again. So I've gone to, there's the surge models. I've gone to this first layer of the tab. I click on these ellipses over here, and I can now make this transparent. So I can shift that so you can actually see what's underneath each of those areas as well too. So this will be important when we're playing with critical facilities, for example, and you want to make sure and you want to see what likely inundations are. You can kind of play with this transparency to kind of help you look at what's likely to be underneath those areas and what you need to be potentially concerned about as well too and stuff. So again, this is the surge data, and you've got the smooth as well as the precise versions of those data that you can play with. We also have wind data for the area. I'm going to zoom out here so we can get a better picture. Yeah, no, I just hate the wheel. Sorry. We've got a variety of different wind profiles for the area. These are historic winds as well as potential maximum winds. We've got it by block group. So by block group, that's in the census creates different areal units or area units. They're blocks, block groups, tracts, and then you counties and the like, so they're different levels. We've got them for block groups as well, so you can kind of see what the categories are for the winds themselves. We've also got the historic storm track data as well too. So I'll go ahead and click that on.
Got to click historic wind.
Oh, sorry.
And that's the
Oh, is it already on? Okay, let me turn this off. Sorry. some of these are by default on, and so we need to kind of modify those as well too. So these are the historic storm tracks. This is the 2019 data for the area. Well, actually, the entire state's up here if you really wanted to look at what is going on for the historic storm tracks. These tracks, if we click on it, do we have the, yeah, so you've got the basic information on each of the track, on the kinds of storms that we are talking about as well too. And if I want to get a little bit more specific data with regard to this, if you click on enabling the pop-up and then go to the storm track, it will give you information about the storm as well too, and the maximum winds, etc., for each of those. The reason we've got these storm tracks up, well, I mean, oftentimes people are, of course, interested about this, but the storm tracks were also utilized to actually create the maximum winds. These data were created by Steve Quiring, who now is at Ohio State University. He was here in our Department of Geography for many years, and TDM's funded him to actually do the wind maps for Texas, and so that's the data that we have up. So I'm going to turn these, well.
And those have some transparency, Steve.
So what I've got now is kind of the wind speeds. Do we have, is this the contour here?
Good.
So these are the contours. I may be a little bit transparent. Is that?
Yeah, try. Yeah, try.
Yeah, I'm going to make it a little bit darker. So these are based on the historic storm tracks. Then they modified that data set, or actually kind of replicated that data set through time. And these are wind speeds then generated on the basis of those historic maps. So they reflect what are likely wind speeds based on the historic patterns as well too. So you can see when we were working down in the valley, I mean, there are storms that have come up, of course, out of the Campeche area, and so they have a tendency to kind of come up in that angle, and then we can also see the storms up just north of the Bend area as you move into the Houston area and stuff. So those are historic wind patterns and what we might anticipate given those historic patterns in terms of what's of the coastal Texas. And again, you can modify those so you can actually look at what is under those particular areas in your individual communities as well too. We can also look at that. These are nice contours, and what we've also got is them set out in block group areas as well too. So this reflects then looking at likely wind speeds that have had hit an area before and looking at what, so it basically takes and converts that into block groups. Pre-Harvey, yes, thank you, pre-Harvey. Good point, David, right, exactly. So, so the recent storms, I think this was 2 years, 3 years, 4 years ago, I think, so it doesn't have the Harvey data in here. We'll have to check that. So, anyway, so that's the winds by block group. I'm going to turn those off. And now I'm going to go to the ASCE 7 wind profiles. Zoom back out here. So these are the wind profiles that are utilized by the American Society of Civil Engineers that actually help shape building codes throughout the United States and Texas as well too. These are the suggested wind speeds for construction in areas, and what we've got is a generalized version of these data because they are specified by different types of construction as well too, residential construction, engineered facilities, and the like. But we thought that it would be important to kind of get these data up there so people can get a better sense of, you know, what are the likely winds that for thinking about construction and construction techniques as well too. So, okay, get those. And these actually lay it out by the different kinds of construction as well too. Cat 2 are residential construction, and you can look at this as well for engineered structures for different areas. Cat 3 are critical facilities that can have consequences if things go down, and then Cat 4 kind of like as a catch-all. So data. So this kind of gives a general idea of what we might be needing to consider in terms of how and where we are building in particular areas along the coast. Whoops, sorry, I've got one more person who wants to join.
Each one of those has contours
and boundaries.
And the boundary and
yeah, so with each one of these, you probably notice that there are, sometimes it comes up with a boundary, sometimes it comes up with a contour. So if you just want the boundaries up, you can just pull the boundary layers, or if you want both, you can also have the contours come up as well too, to kind of help you see what's going on. So wind and surge, we will also include shortly the flood zones as well for the entire area, so those data will be available also. At this point, just to kind of give you a little sense of our thinking on this, we've got these kind of major categories of data. Sorry, we have one more person coming in. We've got the major categories that we are considering. We may well cluster these into physical hazards, into vulnerabilities and the like. The more we cluster them into kind of folders themselves, it can become a little difficult to work with. So we're trying to kind of minimize that at this point in terms of the development. But any suggestions that y'all have, we certainly will entertain and consider. Do you have any questions so far?
You got to unmute. Oh, they're already.
Yeah. All right. So here are the current evacuation zones that are being employed there. I'm going to zoom in. So those are the 2008, I'm sorry, this is 2008 for most of the county. We also have the ones for Nueces County, the staging areas as well too. So these are the 2013 ones that were developed as well too. But let me just talk about these general ones to begin with. If you turn on again, or the pop-up's already on this one?
Lower level.
Okay, so we can play with the
actually, they're already on. They should already be on if you just click in them.
Okay, let me just, again, you can play with the transparency so you can actually see what's underneath each of these areas. Actually, Doug, do you want to show the scroll tool here or not?
The slide?
Yeah.
If you want. We have another tool up here that will may be useful to you. You can actually use them in concert, so you can adjust the transparency at this level if you wanted.
Watching the everybody, sorry about that.
But we can also, the swipe tool is up here with this set of widgets, and it sets it up so we can move the we can select a layer to turn off as we move the swipe tool back and forth. So if I move that down to the back,
I'll meet you or at lunchtime, either way. Thank you. You could.
There's another person who can come in.
Okay. So like I said, if you had multiple layers on or anything like that, you could make the, well, it affects how big it is. So that's just another tool, and we may show that a little later in kind of more detail as we pull layers in together.
There's information with respect to each one. Again, these are by county. So if you click in an area, then it tells you then the basic information of, so this is the CAT 1 and 2 zone for San Pat. Gives you some basic information. There's the population in the area. There's the household in the area. There's the number of vehicles in the area. And that's actually the number of jobs that are located in the area. There's a great variety of data that we can put on here as well too, but we just wanted to give kind of basic information. Here it is for CAT 4 and 5. So again, population, number of households, and number of vehicles in those areas. And that is available for each and every one of the evacuation zones. And again, these are by county as well too. So that's the current zones that are being employed out there. Let me actually go to these are the current zones for Nueces County. So again, you can click here and get the basic information. This is the most recent population data for these zones as well too. So population, households, vehicles, as well as jobs for each one of the staging areas for Nueces County as well too. So we've got then the 2008 and 2013 for Nueces County. Here are our draft zones for each of the areas. So as Doug was mentioning, we've got kind of a general version for the entire area. And then we've got for each area, then we've also, I guess I must have only part of these on. That's the boundaries for the areas as well too. So there's just a boundary version of those. Here are the detail ones for Nueces County. Again, if you wanted to, you could just, if you are working in Nueces County, you can just come and click and it will zoom right into Nueces County. So these are, again, the draft zones for Nueces County. Is the pop-ups on? Yeah, so again, we've got the pop-up information. So this is for the A1 evacuation zones. We've got population, households, vehicles. We've got very detailed sets of information here, as well as elderly population, population and poverty. We really can scale those back and everything, but the main kinds of information you might be interested in there is at the top layer. There it is for A3. Here is for evacuation zone B, etc. So you have, again, each of the data for each of the zones for our draft zones. Again, you can play with the transparency so you can actually see what's underneath of those areas and to get a better idea of what's going on. Here is, let's zoom up to Calhoun. The reason we've got these kind of separate ones for Nueces and Calhoun is, if y'all remember, we've got basically A, B, and C, but we've got A1, A2, and different versions of those for Calhoun and Nueces County. And so that's in part why we've got slightly different versions, or the more detailed versions for each of those areas as well too. Again, you'll notice there's evacuation zones as well as evacuation boundaries for each of these areas as well too. We've left this as a little bit obscure, again, because we're again, these are not the evacuation zones that are in current use. So these are the draft zones that we're working with in terms of this project and the like as well too and stuff. So I'm going to zoom out. Hmm?
Bookmark for the whole thing.
Yeah, I could have. Now, in terms of, so those are the, again, the basic evacuation zones, as well as the physical. Let's kind of walk through some of the other data that we have here. In terms of roadways, we've got the evacuation routes, as well as they're coded here. In those that are potentially impacted by surge as well too. You can see the potential colors for them, as well as the ones that should not be impacted. You can see areas impacted here where they're crossing rivers and streams, and then areas that are right along the coast as well too. So we've got the basic evacuation routes, as well as, if we want, we can look at all the TxDOT roadways, and these get, as we zoom in, you get detailed information about each of those as well too. So we've got basic roadway data. We've got public school data, since public schools are oftentimes used for, well, they're a major issue, of course, in terms of vulnerability, but often can play a role in terms of evacuation centers and the like. We have the different kinds of public schools, as well as the sizes of those schools as well.
Evacuation.
That's a good question. Where are they not coming in? There they are. They're just
Sorry,
areas
I was in an
that have
area
any-
without schools, so I was wondering where the data were. So, if you zoom in, let me go here. The pop-up's already going to happen. This one.
You got to do it at each level.
Oh, at each level. Okay, sorry. Let me go to public schools, and
they're actually already
they're
enabled
there as
anyway.
well too. So if you click on these, then we get the basic information about.
That's the ISD. Click to the right arrow right here, and that'll be the school. If you turn this layer off, you won't get that other.
So you can get information about each and every one of the school, the enrollment of the school, you know, where, et cetera, et cetera. So again, detailed information on each and every one of the schools in there as well too. And then you've got the boundaries again for the different independent school districts also, so you can look at those. I don't have that on. Zoom back out. So you can see the different boundaries for areas as well too, in terms of what school districts you need to work with, and et cetera, in terms of planning activities. Critical facilities. Lots of critical facilities in here. So we have broken those down into different types of data for those areas. If y'all don't like these categories and you would like to for us to shift them, we certainly are willing to do that as well too. But for kind of our under critical facilities, for basic infrastructure, we've got, you know, power plants, critical for our tourism and for planning for those more transitory populations as well too. We've got hotels in here, and these have, again, different symbology with respect to each and every one of these. So let me go ahead and turn on, let's just do well, since mobile homes is up, let me go ahead and turn on the mobile homes. So you notice, get a little bit complex here. We've got the critical facilities layer. In there, we've got an infrastructure layer that's offset, and then within that, we've got data within each of these, within this subfolder as well too. So I'll turn on the critical facilities layer. These are all the mobile home data for the area. These are combinations of mobile home parks, plus then Alex and other students that we have working on there have spent hours and hours going through and actually zooming into different areas to find out what is actually in particular areas, what kinds of mobile homes. So this actually are data. So some are clearly much more parks, others are isolated mobile homes, and you can talk about, actually, these are mobile homes, RVs, as well as travel trailers located as well too. So these are all geolocated for each and every one of these that appear. So we used Google Maps and Google Street View as well to go in and try to find these locations, as well as zooming in on the different kinds of mobile home parks, so you can get a sense of, I mean, this is clearly a kind of a park area here. So you can get a sense of actual locations for these highly vulnerable structures. Can turn those off. We can look at the motel data. I've got to find some motel there. So. With the motel data as well too, hotel data, I'm going to enable the pop-ups. These data come from a variety of sources, okay? Basically, they come from the comptroller's office in Austin. So this has everything from vacation homes that are out for rental, as well as large hotels. And we've gone in and looked at each of these hotels to try to estimate the number of units in the hotel, as well as we're going to be estimating the number of vehicles and the like that are out there as well too. So you can actually click on and get a sense then of where we've got single units, vacation homes, all the way through quite large hotels as well too, in the areas also. With healthcare, we've got hospitals, nursing homes, and urgent care facilities. They all have, again, different symbology that's associated with them, and you can get an idea. Again, you can click on each one of those facilities and give you a description, a basic description of those facilities. Sorry, here's then hospitals in here, as well as nursing homes and urgent care facilities and stuff in each of those areas. So you can get a sense of that.
Question, please.
Sorry?
Question, please, Rick McLester.
Sure.
The year date of this data, the latest, what are we current today, or is this like 2015, 2014 something?
The mobile homes are pretty current, so that's 2016, 17, and 18, depending upon some of the Google Street Views. The basic data itself is this last year's tax data, so that's highly current. The other critical facilities data have been gathered these are from FEMA, and we'll have the metadata. That's actually, we need to have those. Where is the metadata for each of these?
And a follow-up question to that when this project is complete, is there an indication that there will be further funding to keep it current, or will this ultimately just be a snapshot with a specific last data date?
Basically, the way it is, it'll be a snapshot at this point.
But many of the layers come from our Atlas project, and there are several layers in the Atlas that we keep current, and so it's feeding off the database. So as those are kept current, they will be updated anytime you open a new map. At this time, I can't tell you which layers fall into which category.
So I understand, and that might have been a vague question. It's just Harvey and Aransas County, there's so many things that are coming online that pre-Harvey was, is different than post-Harvey, and I was just curious as to the timeline and time lag of the data. And then my last question would be, obviously, when I get this and start playing with Aransas County, if I see something like you don't have a particular motel or something that I think is important, do we have the ability just to contact somebody and say, hey, you're missing this part in this layer? Is that how this is going to work?
Yes, exactly. That's what we want you to do, to email us, and on two fronts. One, there may be data that y'all have, a layer that you want to give to us that we can include in. as well as if there's specific entities, that would be something that we can add as well too. Back on your point about about the changes in the area. One of the things that we've been asking to get from every county. Yeah. Forgive me, y'all. Somebody needs to mute, please.
Some road over there in Kennedy County. She didn't want a phone number within the 360 area code. She wanted a phone number that put her in Willacy County.
What we, sorry, what was I saying? We were talking about, we've been trying to get the parcel data from every one of the counties, and we wanted to get the pre and post Harvey data as well too. I mean, in Aransas County, in Refugio, and I mean the other areas, there are major changes in where residences are and other buildings as well too. So we're trying to kind of get those data, and one of the things that we're doing is to actually look at the before and after so we can see where those changes are as well too. So we're trying to kind of capture some of that. There will be metadata for each one of these layers that will have the information about where they come from. Back to kind of clarify Doug's response to that, one of the things that the Hazard Center and actually with our department is we have and are constantly updating a larger version of the atlas, and in that we are constantly adding new data. When those data are added, if they are linked in to this particular for the atlas for the coastal bend area, those data will automatically be updated as well too. So some data will be updated and maintained. Other data will not necessarily be updated as well too. Some of these will be quite project specific as well too. So I hope that
if I can answer the question. If I can answer your question, it's Alex Garcia from the Coastal Bend. Is there any way to add on here when you go over the layer list the dates that show the last update per layer to make it a little bit, to give us more, unless it's there somewhere and I just don't see it?
It's not on.
When was the last time it was updated?
Yeah,
sorry, what was that?
Are you saying you would like for it to be in the legend, or when you pick on the item and look at the metadata?
I think when we look at the metadata, would probably play a little bit more important role, only because then we're going to know when was the last time it was updated. It was a 2008 storm or 2012, then just to make it so we can all see it all at once. But I mean, we need to do it the other way, whatever is easier, but I think if we added a date on there, that would give us a good point of reference.
We can do that. You may have noticed on the storm track data that I had the date that it was current to. I had it to 2019. So that's one case where I put it in the layer label. Yeah. But it needs to be the metadata certainly.
We definitely will have it in the metadata for sure, and then may well have it on some of the others also. But the metadata for sure.
Yeah. That way it tells us how current it is when we're first looking at it.
And folks like me that are technically challenged, I would sure like to see that before I clicked on it. You know, it may be so old that it's not gonna do me any good.
I don't think it's gonna distract by putting the date on each layer if we can do it. We'll check into that.
Thank you.
We also then have a school and daycare layer, so daycare facilities, as well as private schools that don't appear in the public school data up here as well too. So we've got those listings also. And then a whole variety of data with respect to emergency response. So local EOCs, fire stations, police stations, and the like for each and every one of these also. These data are coming from FEMA, and so if we click on where is the metadata here right now or not? Yeah. So it gives you kind of the basic information with
That's
respect
not
to the
gonna happen.
metadata, but we do need to include I don't guess it has the
It
date.
doesn't have the description there yet.
Oh, does it have a date anywhere in here?
Mm.
I will definitely need to do that. We will have, as part of the vulnerability report, we'll have a detailed description of the data as well too, in plain language that hopefully will help as well to people understand the nature of the data. Do I just?
Hey, can you hear me? This is Billy.
Yeah. Hey, Billy.
Hey, on the EOC locations, did we have our backup location there also in case that is needed, or do you just want the main location?
That is a good question. If y'all will look at that and let us know if you want modifications of that. Again, these came straight from the FEMA region, and so if there are additional data that you want on there and or other descriptions for main versus satellite or something like that, let us know, and then we can include those as well in there.
Yeah, I think that would be good if we have backup in there. That way it's in the system.
That would make sense, yeah.
Another question, following up on Billy's point, is the generic question then going to be that you guys are really receptive to making it personally to Aransas County, and the rules are kind of thrown out the window that unless it's something really crazy, you're receptive to us, like Billy's question, backup EOCs. If Billy wanted it, then it's just a matter of asking for it, and the rules are kind of allowed us for him to personalize things that he wants for City of Corpus Christi. Is that kind of correct what we're talking about?
Absolutely.
Everything's
Yeah.
out there.
Anything y'all want on there, and that you can give us the data, and we'll geo-reference it. Then we'll put it on there for you.
One thing we should let you know how to get that.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is it's not a lowest common denominator kind of process. In other words, you don't have to have it for everybody in order to add it to the atlas. If you have it for one entity, it's perfectly fine and able to be added.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. We would have no problem with that at all.
And one other question, it's Alex again. Is there information regarding the bases that are in the area on here, and we just haven't seen it yet?
No, but I have them.
I don't know that sorry, Doug just answered he has some of that.
I have them in the Atlas database, but I don't have them on this map.
And part of it's also because there's a lot of lay people out there as well, so I don't know whether you've got that somewhere that we can. Because I've got two bases here in the quick area. We got Kingsville as well, and Corpus, and then Beeville. I just want to be sensitive to it.
That could be almost like a critical facility in that group.
Yeah, we could just add it in there, and if there are, David just mentioned that if there are particular industry type data that they're okay with sharing and they all want up there, then that would be fine. We're leaving it up to y'all to work out those agreements in terms of that. If we do get a complaint, we'll have to deal with it and address with that. But at least for the time being, we will work on trying to do exactly what y'all want, and have exactly what y'all want on here. You can see it actually with the evacuation zones. Noises are slightly different, so we've got the unique zones up there for them, for the staging zones and the like, so that's no problem with us adding those kinds of data to it.
I think y'all have been really, really receptive to us on our request on particular things that each jurisdiction is wanting in their area. We appreciate that.
Thank you. All right, population issues as well too. So we've got some general population data, and then we've got a bit more specific population data as well too. We think it's important that we get an idea of not only where population is, but the characteristics of those populations as well too. So we've got data, for example, on work and residential area characteristics. So these are data from the Census Bureau, in which, and actually in conjunction with the state of Texas. And it shows where jobs are, i.e. where people are working, as well as then their residences and the like. So I'll click on, I don't think we have anything else on in here, right? So this is the residential data. So all employed persons, and these are where people are actually located. These data are by the block, that is, by the census block. So give it a second to. So that point represents what's going on within the census block in that area. Let me see if I've got the. Sorry.
We don't have the boundaries.
Yeah, I was just see if it's got the pop-up and everything. Sorry. The relative size of these kinds of gives you an idea of the number of individuals that are represented by each and every one of these as well too. Sorry. If you enable the pop-up in the area, then you can actually look and get a sense. Then there are 406 employees in those areas. So they're
actually this is all of those layers. It's population, housing units, residences, and workers.
For each one of each block, census block in those areas. We also then have where the jobs are located as well too. We kind of like these data because it certainly tells you, where you've got major employers in an area, and maybe then folks that you need to make sure you work with in terms of shutting down to allow the employees to prepare and evacuate as well too. That's again for the entire area. So those data you can see it's much more concentrated and it resolves down to very fine resolution as well too for each of your areas also. We will, for example, then with our vulnerability analysis, we will actually be talking about the total number of employees in a particular area as well too, to kind of give you a sense of those things, as well as where, again, these are where the residences are. So the residential pattern versus the employment pattern will be slightly different. Doug, you want to add?
When we showed the pop-up with the fields in there, those are the data that are accumulated for each of the evacuation zone areas. So when we total the population, the workers, the residences, the population, household, housing units, and so forth, in each draft evacuation zone, they come from this data.
In addition, again, this is we have building data, building footprint data.
Before we go into the building, the vulnerable population, I don't know if we talked about this before, but the STEER data that we receive for people that need, either functional need or just need a way, is that in this data? Have we talked about that already?
We talked about it. We don't have access to those data. If you have access to those data and they're okay with us putting it up here, we will put that up there for you. It's actually on my list down on the special needs registration data that we don't have, but we can add that to it as well.
The next STEER committee meeting, I'll bring it up and see what they say.
Great. This building footprint data as well too. I'm going to zoom back out. This is one of those layers that notice nothing. You can't even access that layer, but as you zoom in, it lights up, and so then you can click on it and do I not have something on? There it is. It is a massive data set and stuff. So, but it actually gets your very high resolution footprint data for buildings in the area as well too and stuff. Everything from residences all the way up to businesses and the like and stuff. So very high resolution stuff if you want to kind of look at what is in particular areas as well too. Looks like everything froze up there. I went too fast or something.
Let's go.
One question for you. When will the update on the because we have a census coming up in a few years, when will this information, or when will it, based on the information that gets fed into it, be updated regarding the population after the next census?
Well, the census, so this, assuming they get everything printed and it goes out, the census will take place, of course, in April 2020. It usually is the voting precinct data is released as one of the first parts of that data that's released, and that generally does not get released. I think it's something like about a year, right? And it's in different areas as well too. So it'll be 2021, 22. However, there are two things that are going on here. One is that we've got we're using a proprietary assessment data, as well as the loads data that comes out. This is 2016 data that we have on there, and then the ACS data. So when we get to the social vulnerability, that's the American Community data. That's 5-year data that are constantly moving forward, and we have currently now the 2017 data. So that's 17, 16, 15, 14, 13. So it's that set of data in there, and that is constant. We're constantly updating that. That will be happening constantly for all the Coastal Atlas stuff. So when we get to the social vulnerability stuff, that will be updated constantly. Did that answer the question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
We also have these data these are a little bit of a, they're specific data that is at a block level, again, that provides an assessment. I'm sorry, let me enable the pop-up here. Doug, is it?
I'm not even sure that I want to.
So it actually gives you then.
That's the 90-meter data.
This is very high resolution information about what's going on in particular areas. So there are 25 people in this area and stuff. So we've got it up there right now that we're playing with. This is kind of a masked version of these data. But the general data that we will be using will be census data in there as well too. But this kind of links nicely with the building data to look at as well.
That's 2018.
2000, yes, 2018.
2018 to the nearest
estimated data for each of the areas. All right, I'm about to shift into this kind of social vulnerability stuff, but before I do that, any questions? Any other questions so far?
This is Gary. I just have one question.
Sure.
Will this be a web-based program only, or will be a standalone program available for download? Is it all going to be based on connectivity?
Good question. Two things on that. One is the current version of this is available for your laptops, for your phones, for your tablets and everything. So you can bring the stuff in and look at it in there. But it does demand that you have connectivity at that point. The data themselves, the non-proprietary data themselves and stuff, we will provide to you. If you have your own GIS shop and you want your own version of this stuff, we will provide all those data for you as well too. So did that answer the question?
Yes, I believe so.
One thing we won't have is a package that will, unless you're running, GIS software, you won't be able to use the data. So we don't have a kind of a canned package that pulls it all down together. Like does that make any sense?
Exactly.
Well, for us less technical challenged, did you just say that as long as I connect and pull up your webpage, I got all that stuff. But if for some reason I wanted to bring and create it in a icon on my computer, then I have to have that GIS software, correct?
No, not if you have a web connection.
Well, that's what he says. If you have a web connection, you use it as it is. But if you want to play with the data yourself in the sense of creating your own platform and stuff, yeah, you would have to have GIS running, either Esri or QGIS, or there are a variety of different kind of open source versions of that as well too and stuff.
Well, again, am I correct? And again, excuse my absence of technology. If in fact somebody did pull that in and brought it to their own system, then at that point they don't get the automatic updates that you guys are going to continue to do as long as this program's active, correct?
Right. Yes, you're exactly right.
So the best, to me, the best way would be just to have, you know, a quick access to the web page, and at that point you're getting the latest, greatest that would exist at that point in time.
Correct.
Thank you.
One of the tools that we will be working on is the possible to download some of this stuff as well too. So for example, if you got up there and you were playing on this and you say, oh, they put up the newest whatever data, then you could download it and then bring it into your system as well too. So
For someone who is knowledgeable, you know, that uses GIS quite a bit, there is actually a way that we can share the data live so that you can put it on your desktop. That's something that we're working toward. We don't have that available yet.
Well, unfortunately, I'm one of the counties that doesn't have the GIS department that's actively running and got everything, all census data and everything readily available at my fingertips. So I would utilize this to rely on this being available. And as I texted somebody a while ago, this is great stuff. I'm glad somebody had the thoughtful to bring all of this public data and private data into a one-stop shop. But my comment was that while it's available for evacuation planning, but what I'm seeing here goes way beyond just evacuation planning. It can be used for many, many, many other side notes to what I might need in any given day with my area.
actually, I'm glad you said that, because that's one of the things that, you know, I mean, I'm sure we're going to do a couple of these down in the area, and pulling in other folks from your county and cities that want to use these data that could help them in terms of writing grants, help them in terms of facilitating their planning, is exactly what we want to see. That this is my larger picture. I've got my hat on now as a professor in the planning department here. Our Texas Target Communities, that's our kind of why we have this larger atlas, because we want to help especially communities that do not have those resources, that need to have some capability and stuff. And that's the wonderful thing I think about this project as well too, is it's facilitating that to happen also. I know the folks down in the valley have used it, for example, on housing related issues, on healthcare kinds of things as well too and stuff. So it's spread the word and yeah, have them use it. That's great.
What you're looking at now is one application built on the Texas Planning Atlas. So there are certainly other applications that could be developed.
So, and speaking of that, as well as, you know, I'm kind of really getting into other elements that I think are critical for evacuation planning, but for other kinds of planning activities, are what we call our kind of social vulnerability elements of the Atlas. And we've got two basic kind of versions of this thing. We've got general social vulnerability, and then what we've got is the thing we call SVI models. These are really refined versions of it, but I'm going to focus first to begin with on just the general social vulnerability. The issue here is what we've done is we've taken the American Community Survey data, that's 5-year data, that provides a wealth of information about households and individuals and housing in an area, and we have built those up into different kind of categories, if you will, related to child and child care needs, elder care needs, transportation, shelter needs, civic capacity, that is the ability to kind of mobilize what's going on within individual neighborhoods. These data are presented at the block group level, and by that I mean, again, these are fairly low census units. They're fairly small in that there are, you know, a few hundred to a few thousand people in each of these areas, but they can get very large in rural areas, and that's one of the reasons why we have this model kind of version as well too. But for example, with respect to transportation, we've got data on whether or not the population is dependent upon public transportation, whether there are no vehicles in housing units, because, you know, we basically depend upon people getting themselves out for the most part when it comes to evacuation. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. So if we look then at public transportation issues, I'm going to click on transportation and then this.
It's going to turn on child. You need to turn off child.
Oh, sorry. These then are, let me put on the two parts of this. So these are, again, focusing on each and every county specifically. This looks at then populations that are dependent upon public transportation, and it goes basically that population and split it up into different categories, more or less. We just played with it a little bit. But the darker the areas, the higher the vulnerability of those areas as well too. So of the population in those areas and stuff. So here is public transportation dependent. Here is housing, excuse me, households without a vehicle. So every one of these darker areas then have high concentrations of households that do not have access to their own private vehicle. They'll have to be sharing rides with others. They'll have to be contacting other family, friend, and relatives to actually get out in the case of need for an evacuation. Do we have the...
They're already on.
Okay, so if you click in... Sorry?
Really well.
If you click in here, then for each one of these areas, then we've got, we know that there are 139 households that we have data on here. We know that there are on average 22% that do not have a vehicle. And then we've also got a little bit of information about the validity of these data. And by that I mean, or the reliability of these data is actually what we're referring to. These are, again, American Community Survey data. So this is a survey that is collected constantly by the census. They gather those data up and they aggregate them to a block group, and then they come up with an estimate in those areas. So sometimes we have very small samples that we are dependent upon here. And so we've got information about how reliable that data is as well too. So I'm going to turn, sorry, I need to go down here. So this gives you a sense of, I mean, this data here is relatively low reliability. In other areas, we've got fairly high reliability there. So I just have that on there for you to better understand the potential issues in terms of those estimations. But I think the major issue, the major lesson here is looking at those darker areas will have households that do not have access to vehicles, and so that needs to be looked at in terms of your planning relative to evacuation as well too. So you can have that is for the entire area as well too. Now, if you'll notice, I'm going to turn this back on, I'm sorry. You notice some of these areas are quite large in terms of their how large that area is. As we get down, so for example, in Cleburne and in Kennedy County, I mean, we're really got a very sparse or dispersed population in those areas. To facilitate y'all's planning, we've also taken these data and modified them with our most accurate population data, and that's this SV modeling stuff. So if y'all will bear with me for a second, I'm going to turn these things off. So we have the same categories here. So I'm looking at transportation needs as well too. So this is, we've taken dependent on public transportation as well as information about lacking a vehicle, and we've combined those together so we get slightly better measurement of where we've got some particular issues and the like. And now I will turn these on.
You've got to turn this
What am I-
SBI model.
And I need to turn these off, sorry.
They're on, they're just hard to see.
So here we've got super high resolution versions of that same data. So we now know that this is in Victoria. We know in these particular areas within Victoria, they've got potential issues. All of these different blue spots indicate that there are some problems, but high concentrations within here in terms of populations that are going to have transportation issues. So this can really facilitate your kind of planning activities. So we've taken that very coarse data, if you will, and tried to refine it to facilitate y'all's planning activities with respect to that, with respect to these different characteristics. Similarly, you can look at elder population. So this is elder population, population in poverty as well. You can look at places where you've got lots of children, single parent households as well too. So you can focus on different kinds of households, different kinds of populations to really enhance your planning, not only with respect to evacuation overall, but also in terms of kind of targeting particular areas. So clearly then in these areas, working through, for example, churches, working through neighborhood community groups can facilitate your planning to make sure you're going to get people out of those areas as well too and stuff. So very high resolution kinds of stuff as well too here. So that's the super high resolution under these model versions, and then a little bit more generic in terms of census block groups as well too. Remember again too, sorry. All right, transparency is up here, right? Mm-hmm. Here again, you can play with the transparency so you can get a better idea of what's going on, what specific areas we're talking about within your communities as well too and stuff, so you can get a better sense of what's going on. And if you want, you can then overlay these with of course, with the evacuation zone, so you can prioritize where you need to be focusing for your zone A, B, and C as well too in each of your areas. So we have that again for children or child issues, elder care issues, transportation issues, shelter. So whether we also know that renters sometime are going to have major issues as well is being experienced right now in Aransas and areas where multifamily housing has been really slow to come back on. So this can facilitate your post-disaster planning as well too. Group quarters, so where you've got high concentrations of individuals within those areas. And again, we've got the mobile home data here. We've also got civil capacity issues. So your non-white population, population in poverty, population without telephones, lower educated, unemployment areas, issues with speaking English as well too. So again, you can really target in on different kinds of populations that you need to work on in terms of your evacuation planning. I will say this as well too. When we go through the vulnerability analysis, we will have, a little discussion about why these things are important, what the research literature tells you about certain populations and their hesitancy to evacuate, their difficulties in evacuating. So as we develop our manuals with respect to the vulnerability analysis, you'll have detailed information that I hope will help facilitate your planning. I do want to stress that this is just a map. These are maps that will identify where there are potential problems, but this is like the first step in that planning process, and pulling different groups together in your communities are going to be the critical next steps in terms of kind of dealing with those issues and stuff. So I know that was a lot of information thrown at y'all, but it kind of gives you an idea of the variety of information that we're going to be utilizing in the vulnerability analysis, and that is provided for you here on your coastal planning atlas for this area as well too. Other questions and issues? Well, let's deal with just questions about this, and then we'll shift to the issue kinds of things.
When is this going to be available for direct use and not have to go through this link and this formal process?
Well, the link is up. You're free to use it now. Is that?
Okay, so what you just demoed is available right now today.
Right now today, you get on that link.
You got the agenda there, Rick?
It was there, but it popped off now. Somewhere it's here.
Yeah, this agenda, that link right there, if you get on there, you can do everything that I've done today. It's all there.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And we will, once it's a little more refined, we'll have it linked from the HRRC website that he showed you earlier as well.
Sorry, any other questions or comments, just general versions right now? Well, let me say then that we've got the flood data will be up here shortly. That is 100 and 500 year flood data for each and every one of your counties as well too. So you'll be able to kind of look at those data also. David, I know, has been pinging y'all's in terms of the parcels and stuff. Yes. Do you want to say something, David?
Yeah. So we have gotten. We sent out a request last year and got some good help from folks on initial look at some parcel data. But we learned that some of it we didn't have quite all the fields that we need to do the vulnerability part of it. And then the other thing that Walt mentioned is really taking a look at both the 2017 and 2018 pre and post Harvey data. So we followed up with folks in most of the counties and gotten in contact. We still haven't gotten final data from folks in San Patricio and Aransas and Kleberg counties, but we have been in communication, and we know that it's a busy time of year for your appraisal district folks, and so we're hoping that we can close the loop on that here in the near future. Still, if there's folks on from Nueces and Calhoun and Kennedy counties, we could use your help in getting a hold of your CAD folks, your appraisal district folks, so that we can get that request in and they can understand what it is we're asking. It's a little bit technical. Sometimes it's just a phone call really helps talk through things as opposed to sending lengthy emails back and forth. So please, if you're with Nueces or Calhoun or Kennedy counties, if you can send us an email separate from this meeting afterwards offline, we can try to line that up. We'll appreciate it.
In particular, with that parcel data, the critical elements of those data is that we would like the assessed values of these properties before and after Hurricane Ike, because that gives us an idea of then being able to track where there were, structures and facilities that are no longer there or that were significantly damaged. It also, the land use codes for those areas gives us an ability then to talk about, what assets are in vulnerable locations for each county and each city, so that they can help and facilitate their kind of planning activities as well too. We also, the steer data, Billy already mentioned as well too and stuff, so getting, if there are those data and you would like us to put them up, your special needs registration, please let us know. You can get them and you have permission for us to put them up there. We're certainly willing to do that as well too.
Even if it's aggregate data.
Sorry?
If you cannot check, if they cannot able to share like the specific data, they can give aggregate data for that.
Yeah, if you have those data, and for example, it is point data, so it represents where there's a particular home that has a person that is going to need special needs and stuff, we could put this data on there like that, but if there are security issues, which there may well be, we can also aggregate those up to a census block or into some kind of neighborhood areas to kind of obscure those data a little bit, but to actually help y'all in your planning activities as well too. So we can play with that also. Now I know, again, I've thrown a lot at y'all, and I really want y'all to get on these links and y'all to share these links with other folks in your office so that people can play with these things, with these data. But if there are other data that you would like to see on there, please do let us know, and hopefully we can share that as well too in terms of putting those data on as also. But off the top of y'all's heads, are there things that y'all would like to see that we might be able to get access to and put on there?
I think from our end, you've covered, or we've covered as a group, a lot of the stuff that we need to make decisions on evacuations.
Great.
I am interested in the steer data, and specifically no names or anything like that, just kind of pinpointing the neighborhoods that we know we might need to concentrate on when it comes to evacuations.
Great. So then when you get those data, then I want us to, before you give those data to us, let's kind of work through that agreement and stuff so we know that we're not going to, I don't want us to accidentally put something up that y'all don't want up as well too. So we'll work on that with you, okay, and come up then with the appropriate way of displaying those data.
Sounds good. Thank you.
No problem. Oh, I'm sorry. For those of y'all that came late and there was an agenda that was set out, here is the link again to the website itself. I would encourage you to get on there and again share that with other folks that are involved in your planning process to kind of see if this is working for y'all's needs and meeting those needs. We are perfectly willing to do something like this again, as well as I know we're planning on a meeting down in the area at the end of August. And we can do a little bit of a little assessment of this as well too, a little presentation of this as well too before we get into the evacuation scenario development, which is going to be the key. The other thing is in addition to this link, this is the Hazard Center website. You can just put Hazard Reduction Recovery Center, HRRC.archtamu.edu or just HRRC.tamu.edu. And on the right-hand side, there is this Coastal Planning Atlas link, and there is where the kind of general version or curtailed version of that, and we'll put up this version as well too, so this will be another link for y'all as well. If you want to see what we did for the Rio Grande Valley, that data is up there as well too. I I think basically everything we have here is on there, except I think some of the parcel stuff is there.
Yeah, that's an older, but the others are older tools and will require a flash plug-in for the moment. We're working on updating those, but we're focused on Coastal Bend right now.
I have a question.
Let me just say something before I forget, sorry. If you click on any of these links and the atlas starts to come up and a little box comes up and asks for something, just cancel that box and everything works fine. For some reason on Chrome, every once in a while it will look for something else, but it doesn't need it, so just say cancel and the website will come up fine and will be perfectly operational as well too. So just ignore that and just say cancel and everything will come up. Sorry, David.
No, it's fine. I got a question for those of you who, if anyone would like to respond. We've talked about a number of things that Walt's kind of gone through and demoed, and we've had some questions and things like, you know, critical facilities, where's the critical facilities, what are they? And we talked about, you know, we've had some questions on other stuff. But is there any of you that would like to comment on, like, is there particular layers of information or different types or categories of information that you feel are, I mean, you're looking at this and you're like, holy cow, you know, this is really helping us out because we didn't have this kind of visibility before, or is it all, you know, kind of generally useful for planning? So I don't know, Billy or Rick, is there anything that you saw on this that is striking you as that's kind of an emphasis for you folks?
I think what we're seeing today and what y'all are providing is good. I know our floodplain manager would be very interested in this also, as well as our development services group. So yes, like mentioned earlier, this can go, like Rick said, beyond evacuation, where it could actually help the community as far as grants and mitigation. And so this is a great project. I know critical facilities for us and for most of us is very important, as well as the information that we get, as well as the population, which is the questions we always get asked. If we're evacuated zone, how many people are we evacuating? What's the economic effect? And so this is great information.
Okay, thanks.
I will say at different times, the data on here has been utilized, for example, in Beaumont and by different agencies and actually different grassroots organizations to justify, you know, their grant applications and the like. So it's a useful data to kind of help communities bring in additional funds that I think in the long run facilitate, you know, overall resiliency and enhance the overall planning process. So I'm glad y'all see those applications as well too.
I got a question quick.
Go ahead.
David, hey, this is Sheldon Wigington up here in Refugio County. How live is the program? I mean, is it capable of bringing in instantaneous information, or is it I don't know how to put it, or is it something that has to be inputted?
Good question. It is, at this point, it requires us to have already put those data in there. There is the potential for the ability to upload data and actually include that. We're not focusing on that right at this moment, but that potential is there. I won't guarantee that we'll get that up before the end of this, but it is something that we're working on with respect to the overall Atlas period. And if we implement it there, it'll be implemented automatically within these areas as well too.
And the reason I'm asking is Refugio County is dependent on, of course, you know, Nueces, San Pat, and Aransas as to when they evacuate. I'm in one of those counties that if I don't get out of their way, I'm going to get run over. And I was thinking along the lines of maybe getting a TxDOT feed as to traffic flow on roadways during the event of an evacuation.
Wow, you're really pushing it.
That's what I'm saying. How live is live to y'all?
Yeah. This is pretty dead right now. So, but that would be a wonderful thing to see. I mean, you know, there are the RSS feeds that come in from TxDOT that actually show active incidences and the like as well too and stuff. I don't know. Well, Doug is actually he hasn't passed out. He's actually shaking his head, and so we'll look into that and see if we can bring those feeds in.
Many years ago, I wrote a grant to do exactly that, and in the reviews, one of the geographers that reviewed it said, "This is completely useless geography. Is static."
Well, forget that. So, good question. Good question.
On critical infrastructure.
Hey Sheldon, this is Gary. I want to let you know that one of the things we're working on right now with DPS with the captain, with TxDOT is the traffic management plan, and just the exact same thing you're talking about. So I'll visit with you offline on that later on.
All right, Bubba, I appreciate it.
Hey, Barry, Dave Yeager, clearance times are kind of important for me down here in Kingsville as well, so if you can kind of include me on that one.
I'm sorry, Miss, who is that?
Dave Yeager, down in Kingsville.
Okay, yeah.
On critical infrastructure, did we get wastewater and water added? Wastewater and water facilities?
Yeah, and I don't think those data come in from FEMA. If y'all have something, if you are able to get us those layers, we can incorporate them in. Is there somebody we need to talk up to about that, or a particular contact?
Well, both of them are licensed type facilities, water treatment facilities and wastewater treatment facilities. I would assume somebody at the state licensed them. I'm guessing TCEQ, but I'm not positive.
We'll check into it, okay, and then come back to us on it, okay, if you don't hear anything, all right?
Water treatment.
What it was water treatment and wastewater, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you know, there was a time that people were not wanting that stuff up there.
That's what I was just about to say. So. There was a big push to put data like that up on GIS, and then 9/11 happened, and people thought maybe we'll put too much data on the web.
But we'll check into it. Others? Comments? Questions? All right. I want to thank y'all for joining us today. I hope we've at least piqued your interest to kind of get on there and play with this. Again, I would encourage you to, I mean, if you're like me, having other folks in your office kind of play with this and see, you know, what's working, what's not working and stuff, and let us know. And we will be updating this periodically, and again in August we'll do, when we have the meetings down there to focus on the the evacuation scenario stuff, we'll do a little bit of a dog and pony show on this as well too. So. All right.
Thank you.
Thank y'all. We really appreciate y'all joining.
Thank you.
Take care. What's the matter? Now, do we have, I want to make sure.